Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I don't know. I guess they're lighting yard
Can you
candles
hear me okay?
or something.
Yes, can you hear me?
So you're gonna have to be able
Can
to
you hear
see
me?
out there somehow.
You can't hear me?
We have to find the light if we can, or someone's cell phone.
Jesse, can you hear me?
Yeah, we might just have to get someone to
Awesome.
shine the light on the cell phone. We'll we'll have
Great.
someone hold it for you. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Everything sound okay?
We'll have one of these people.
Awesome. Great.
Here, play that chord for me, so I know where we're at.
Test, 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 test. Testing one, two, three. Testing one, two, three. You can turn it louder, I think. Yeah. All right.
Up, nope, it turned off. When you, it's yeah, it's. Can we use another mic? Yeah, let's use another wireless. Michael, Michael, we're switching the podium. So it's gonna be. It's gonna be the yellow one, Michael.
Dylan, if you can hear me in the studio, we're using the yellow mic. Using the yellow mic for the podium. Quick audible.
All right, I'm out of my head, Dave. We got this. I'm gonna try and lock into the guy that I was listening to get the phrasing. It's mostly these. This seems fine to me, right? Mashibu de geula. Is that right? No. Okay.
All
Oh,
right.
he put three notes on there because I was. That's what he did.
All right.
He's like,
Hello, everyone.
that's what he did.
Hello.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm Chaplain Adam Siegel, and it's good to see. It's good to see this gathering. This space has been filled up a lot lately, and that's a good sign. All right. Many of us gathered here just a couple nights ago on Shabbat on Friday night. Some gathered on Saturday morning. Some gathered this morning for Torah study. And so life is going on. But what's present in all of that is a cloud of what's happened over the last, or happened 10 days ago. And so we gather tonight because that cloud continues to hover over us and in some ways is getting darker and darker, which is hard to imagine given how dark it was 10 days ago. As I shared with the residents and staff last Thursday, it was pointed out to me in an article that if you look at the book of Lamentations, it was written thousands of years ago, the language includes citation that Israel's virgins are afflicted, her young children are gone into captivity, the youth and the old man lie on the grounds in the streets, thou hast slaughtered unsparingly. So those are words, while written thousands of years ago, are present now. And as a Jewish faith-based institution, when the Jewish homeland was attacked, and the sense of home, this is Beit Teshuvah, right? We know what a home is. We are a place that seeks to engender a sense of home, a sense of sanctuary. When it's attacked and that sense of sanctity is destroyed thousands of miles away, we feel it here. And so one response is to gather. And we talk. And we sing. And we'll learn a little bit with Rav Shmuley, who's a friend of ours, and a familiar face that was here not too long ago. And we'll pray together, and we'll gather together, and we'll probably cry together. And that's okay. Because at times, gathering, singing some prayer, and tears are the only response to the insanity of terrorism, of the slaughter of innocent women, of men, elderly, children, babies, and those that had nothing to do but try to live in a sense of independence and a sense of freedom. So I'm going to hand over our, with the benefit of Zoom, I'm going to hand over our mic and our presentation to Rav Shmuley, and we'll go from there. Oh, hold on.
Thank you, Chaplain Adam. It's great to be with you. It's great to be with Cantor Nate, Sarah Jacobs. Thanks, Keith Elkins, Jesse Solomon, all of you. I wish I could see all your faces right now because that was the joy of my Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, where your beautiful faces just illuminated, just beautiful souls. And your Beit Teshuvah is my Beit Teshuvah. That's my place of repentance. That's my place of healing. And I love it there, and I love you all. And I'm honored to be with you and look forward to more time in person where we can hug and not just be on screen. Of course, we are a very diverse group here, very diverse views. How could we possibly be united within a crisis of this magnitude? And unity is beautiful. I mean, what's more powerful than human unity, communal unity? But one of the Jewish insights around unity is that it requires a dignity of difference. It requires a respect of the diversity within it as well. If you remember the story of the Tower of Babel, they want to be unified. They want to build one tower together. God's not interested in that. God destroys that tower and creates them into 70 people, 70 languages. Some people think that diversity is a problem. If only we all thought the same, if only we all looked the same and talked the same. But God wants diversity, right? The notion that we're created in the image of God has three components. One is that each of us has infinite dignity and value. Secondly, that each of us is equal. But thirdly, that each of us is unique. Well, if we're equal, how can we be unique? That's one of the paradoxes. Infinite value, equal, and yet each of us unique. And one of the insights of Judaism is that we want disagreement, we want difference, and yet we can be united within that. For some, this might not feel like the most pressing issue, what we're dealing with today in the world. For many of us, we might be living with unbearable fear, almost unbearable anxiety. I know that's the place I'm at. Having family in Israel, many friends, having lived there for years, it's another Beit Teshuvah for me. Israel is my primary Beit Teshuvah in a sense. It's the place I go to check myself. It's my spiritual home where I try to regain my compass, my clarity on my values. And so the suffering has been just enormous. As Chaplain Adam shared, as we all know, hopefully we haven't been too glued to these videos, just horrific things that we would think were not imaginable. What we witnessed in the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Many of us thought, oh, we're past the anti-Semitism, the Holocaust. We worked so hard to not make that primary in our Jewish identity. We said joyful identity, spiritual identity. It doesn't have to be traumatic. It doesn't have to be negative. Why have to be rooted in the past? Let's move on. And then we're pulled back. Can we move on? When in the last week, anti-Semitism has increased 1,500%. Of course, it's possible to be anti-Zionist and not be anti-Semitic, but it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard when you've got dozens and dozens of Christian countries, dozens and dozens of Muslim countries, and there's one little Jewish state the size of New Jersey. And people call the Jews robbers of the land, that the Jews ought to be, that the Palestine should be free from river to the sea, which is a genocidal call. Right, free of Jews. If you read where that phrase emerges from, I'm not saying everyone who says free Palestine means that, but there is a big contingency that uses such a phrase in a way to articulate a genocidal aim. And so the suffering is not only the Jews, of course. There's Palestinian civilians who are suffering immensely, and we care about all human beings. It goes without saying we care about all human beings. It's just worth saying, even though it goes without saying. And I believe that all of this suffering is at the hands of Hamas, and that so many things in life are gray, but this is black and white. What's black and white is when you indiscriminately target civilians. When you go after a terror network, that's a very different activity than going after babies, toddlers, elderly people, going after people enjoying a music festival, dancing, giving them no escape out. That is pure evil. And hopefully we all have that clarity. Right? That's not to say the Israeli-Palestinian conflict at large is simple. It's incredibly complicated. But when it comes to a terror network that wants to bring rage and fear and rain rockets upon everyone, and it comes to an army that wants to defend itself, we have to understand that huge difference. And I believe Hamas is akin to Nazis. You don't just say, you know what, stop fighting the Nazis, like, you don't stop until the Nazis are completely disarmed, completely dismantled from power, right? That's the only way you stop the Holocaust, is to make sure the Nazis are taken down. Of course, I don't mean that. This is not, God forbid, a war against Islam. This is not, God forbid, a war against Palestinians. This is a war against Hamas, a group that wants every Jew dead, ultimately. And so I believe Judaism is ultimately not pacifist. Some of us may wish it was, right? Certainly anti-violence. I mean, gosh, who doesn't want less violence in the world? That's the dream. That's the dream, that the lion would lay down with the lamb, right? That a dream of a world like that. But in the reality we live in, and we all know this, we have to defend ourselves. And the Torah doesn't just allow, but requires us to defend ourselves. Why? Because I matter and you matter. All of us matter. And if you matter and I matter, then I have to be willing to defend myself if I'm under attack. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as part of yourself. This means the love starts with ourselves. We have to love ourselves. And loving ourselves means protecting ourselves from people who want to hurt us. And it's just so strange, this beast of hate in the world. whether it's Islamophobia or xenophobia or homophobia or sexism or racism, all these hates that are unfathomable. And when it comes to anti-Semitism, one of the oldest hates in the world, it happens to be that whatever was worst in society is what the Jews are accused of. If the worst thing you could be was the killer of Christ, which just so happens the Jews are accused of it. If the worst thing you could be is a capitalist, it happens to be the Jews are the founders of capitalism. If the worst thing you could do is communism, happens to be the Jews are the communists. If the worst thing you can do is be occupiers and colonialists and defend yourself against attacks, then it happens to be the Jews are the worst of it. And we have to see that those ancient realities are still alive today. In the Torah portion we read just this last Shabbat, Parshat Bereshit, we saw the power of the teaching that every human being is created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God, as we talked about. That's very powerful. So every human being matters. And yet, how is it possible that just after that, Cain kills his brother Abel? What do you mean? If we're created in the image of God, and nobody knows what that means. Some people say it's our capacity for speech. Some people say it's our capacity for reason. Some people think that we have a soul, unlike other animals. What makes us different than angels, different than animals? What makes us godlike as humans? But one of the ideas that I like is that fundamentally it is our capacity for mercy. That what makes us godly is what's constitutive of humanity is our ability to be compassionate. What do you mean? Right after Cain kills Abel. What do you mean? What do you mean compassionate? Right? What do you mean? Look at the world. It's violence. And that, friends, I think is the deepest faith. The deepest faith to continue to believe in the goodness of humanity, to continue to believe in the goodness of ourselves, even amidst all the pain, all the chaos, even amidst really looking at some of the worst evil in the world outside of us and some of the worst evil within ourselves, still seeing that goodness. We talked about this on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that at any moment, if we read the news, it looks horrific. But I believe so deeply that every given moment, there are more teachers patiently teaching a lesson. There are more strangers holding the hands of strangers dying, as they pass from this world. There are more acts of kindness happening than acts of evil. And going back to the creation story in our parsha of this week, our Torah portion, Vayahi Erev, Vayahi Voker. There was night and there was morning. The Torah could have said, like the broader world says, the day begins in the morning. You wake up, have a great day. Day ends at night. But the Torah said, day starts at night. Which is to say, darkness always comes first, and then comes the light. And wow, what a great faith to hold on to. That in our darkest times, we know that light is on the other side. In our personal lives, and in our global human situation. And so some of us are here mourning tonight. Some of us are mourning because we may have had family or friends who have been killed or have been injured directly or indirectly. We may know some of the 199 hostages taken, toddlers, babies, children, elderly people, teenagers. We pray for them to be returned. And we're in a state of aninut as opposed to avelut. Avelut is a year of mourning. But aninut is the stage before the burial even happens, where you don't even start mourning yet, because we haven't even buried our dead. And that's the case now. We haven't even buried the dead. We're still in the midst of it. And so the essence of spirituality for me is this reminder of our oneness, the reminders of our interconnectivity, what Chaplain Adam just talked about, that what happens on the other side of the world affects me. David Hume once said that we care more about the stubbing of our own toe than we do of the death of another person on the other side of the world. And sadly, in many ways, that's true. We're so profoundly self-interested. And on the other hand, we're constantly in protest with that reality. We take care of ourselves. We're invested in ourselves. We care about our own pain and suffering and dignity. And yet we're constantly pushing ourselves to a more expansive place. And so we're in touch with this suffering. We don't just want to be in the light. We want to be in the dark as well. We're committed to our growth and our recovery. and we see pain outside of us, and it touches the pain within us. And that can lead to confusion, and it can throw us off. When we read the news, when we feel horrific things out in the world, it can throw us off track. And that's what I want to learn with us together in the text I want to look at. How do we keep our rage in check? How do we keep that sadness in check? How do we sit with the discomfort courageously, but also hold it rather than it hold us? How do we sit with those realities, but be able to exist beyond them as well, in a way that we don't view as selfish, we view as a form of self-care, as a spiritual practice. And I'm going to call that tonight Menuchat Nefesh. Chaplain Adam or someone else, please let me know if you can see my shared screen starting now. You see that? Oh, actually, I can see it in your screen too. Good. Okay. So the topic is equanimity. And equanimity means when things are really loud around us, we learn how to lower the volume within us. And that's a very difficult practice. Think about Moshe. Think about Moses. He's walking up to Pharaoh, and everyone's marching with him up to Pharaoh. But one by one, they fall behind. They're afraid. And he looks around, and he's standing there alone, needing to speak truth to power. How do we stay calm in such a situation like that? How do we keep our balance and stay on track? So here's the first idea here. The altar of Navardik, this is on the screen. This was a teacher in a Musar camp, a teacher of spiritual development, asked his student, do you know why the master of the universe created trains? And before any of them could give a response, he answered himself, in order to bring the students here to the yeshiva, to come and learn with us. A thoughtful student questioned, but Rabbi, if so, why does the train run in both directions? That, said the altar, is the test. Life is full of spiritual opportunities and dangers, and we are often in a position in which we can choose which way to go. That's at the altar is the test. So indeed, friends, I think at every moment there's a train, and we're deciding which direction to go on that train. Are we going towards that pathway that we've dreamt of, that we've determined to be our goal? Are we on the train going the opposite direction? And when we hear that noise, we need to be able to take our own pulse and see, am I in a healthy space right now with how I'm looking at this reality? Is this generative to be looking at this, or is this hurting? It's like a ladder. If I'm not going up, I'm going down. Which direction am I ultimately climbing? How, with the conflicts of the world, do we not allow them to trigger us off our path of healing, of recovery, of growth ultimately? That the sorrows in the world, in our community, within our families, are ones that demand our empathy, and yet an empathy that also is self-protective, where we hold on to this equanimity. Okay, friends, here's our second text on this. A rabbi once came to one of the contemplative Kabbalists, one of the mystics, and asked to be accepted as an initiate. The master said to him, my son, may God bless you, for your intentions are good. Tell me, though, whether or not you have attained equanimity. The rabbi said to him, Master, please explain your words. The master replied, if there were two people and one of them honored you and the other insulted you, are they equal in your eyes? The rabbi answered, no, my master, for I feel pleasure and satisfaction from the one who honors me and pain from the insults of the other. But I do not take revenge or bear a grudge. The master blessed the rabbi and sent him away. Go in peace, my son. When you have attained equanimity, your soul does not feel the honor deriving from one who honors you, nor the embarrassment arising from insults. Your consciousness is not yet ready to be attached to the eternal. So part of what, before I go on with the text, part of what's going on over there is this sense of self-worth that is so deep that it can't be thrown off. We don't rely on praise to have that self-worth, and it's not diminished. Our inner light is not diminished when someone tries to throw water on it. Someone tries to put our light out. That's true individually, and that's true collectively. That when our people feel under attack, however we understand our people to be, there's a lot of diversity here in the room, of course. But speaking for myself and for the Jewish people, that hate cannot throw us off. It can't throw us off morally to our moral commitments. It can't throw us off spiritually to our notions of interconnectivity. And it can't throw us off in our sense of our own work in the world. How do we achieve that work of self-healing is interconnected with our ability to be peacemakers in the world, our abilities to defend ourselves and ultimately to work for peace as well. Okay, friends, here's source 3. I'm only going to do 4 tonight because I know my time is limited. I've only got a few more minutes with you. I wish I had more. Viktor Frankl, who was the founder of logotherapy, wrote the great book Man in Search of Meaning, said between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This equanimity is this ability to slow down within ourselves, see what's happening around us and within us, and be able to ultimately gain a sense of control and of clarity of how I'm going to respond to all these triggers around me. How will the hate thrown at me bring a different kind of response? Yes, it may bring a response of self-protection and defense, but also how does hate thrown at me ultimately foster love and care and responsibility and not more hate? How do we not become vengeful? How do we not become so resentful and full of rage ultimately? How do we see what's entering us and gain a control in response of that? How do we learn restraint? So the Rambam, Maimonides, this will be our last source because I know it's kind of a lot I'm kind of throwing out here. But Maimonides, one of the greatest philosophers in the Jewish tradition, who's an Aristotelian, he's learning the Greeks, says the right way is the mean in each group of dispositions common to humanity, namely that disposition which is equally distant from two extremes in its class, not being nearer to the one than the other, right? If I'm working on my character, I don't want to just give all my money away charitably, and I also don't want to be stingy. I need to find a middle path of my own funds and how I'm going to give to others. So true with all the character traits he teaches, almost all. Hence, our ancient sages exhorted us that a person should always evaluate their dispositions and so adjust them that they shall be at the mean between the extremes. And this will secure their mental health. Thus, a person should not be choleric, easily moved to anger, nor be like the dead without feeling, but should aim at the happy medium, right? I shouldn't just be so emotionally overloaded that I just react with emotion, nor should I be cold and dry and just pure reason. I need to balance my emotion with my reason. Not be angry only for a grave cause that rightfully calls for indignation, so that the like should not be done again, right? There is a space for anger, but reserved very small. He will only desire that which the body absolutely needs and cannot do without it, as it is said. The righteous eats to satisfy himself. He will only labor at his occupation to obtain what is necessary for his sustenance, as it is said, a little that a righteous person has is better than the riches of the many wicked. He will not be fight-fisted, nor yet a spendthrift, but will bestow charity according to his means and give a suitable loan to whoever needs it. He'll be neither frivolous and given to jesting, nor mournful and melancholy. We shouldn't be pure joy, nor should we be pure sadness. We have to live the full gamut of emotions, but will rejoice all his days tranquilly and cheerfully. And so will he comport himself with regard to all the dispositions. This is the way of the wise. Whoever observes in their dispositions that the mean is termed wise. And so as we know from Ecclesiastes, there's a time for peace and there's a time for war. There's a time for joy, there's a time for sadness. There's a time to cry, and there's a time to laugh. And to lean into that full way of being in the world, the full existence of being a human being. But ultimately to work for that mean, to achieve an equanimity, an inner calmness that we can't be thrown off. When we see some of the most horrific suffering in the world, some of the most atrocious behavior as we saw Hamas, bring upon Israelis a week ago when we were celebrating Simchat Torah, to dance with the Torahs, and we're so startled. And yet, this can't throw us off our work. We have to do what we can to build our responsibility, to do acts of kindness, to advocate based on our beliefs, and ultimately work for a more peaceful world together. a world of understanding where we continue to have conversations and build bridges, a world of grays where we see the nuance in everything, but also a world of black and whites where we have moral clarity on what's wrong and how we'll speak out against it. So friends, I'm holding you tonight, and I know you're holding me as well, even though I can't see you right now because I know this community. And I know that these are difficult times. We thought it was difficult when we saw what happened in Ukraine. We see it's difficult when we see mass shootings in America and other forms of suffering. And for those of us who have been to Israel or lived in Israel, who have family there, we know how difficult this is. And I give you blessings of strength, blessings of clarity, and that we continue to hold each other in this. And that as deeply as we may feel this, as we should, as we cultivate our empathy, that we also find a way that even these worst conflicts in the world, most atrocious behaviors in the world, they continue to somehow lead us to light, lead us to strength, lead us to inner calm in a way where we too can be agents of shalom, agents of peace in the world. God bless you all, and I can't wait to see you all in person soon in happier times when we can laugh and dance together. But being in community, we also know how to cry together. Many blessings. Thank you so much for the invitation to be with you.
You're getting a lot of love, Rob Shmuley. So I know that you have some little ones that are eager to have them, or have you hold them as much as you want to be, as they want to be holding you right now. So we won't, we welcome you to join us, but we also understand.
I'll be back and forth. Thank you for that sensitivity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, spend some time with their Abba. So thank you, Rob. So it's notable that what we were just learning about in terms of a sense of equanimity, because as we were preparing for tonight, one of the things that came to mind for me was the words of our founder. And right, we're gathering here as Eretz Beit Tshuva. This is we are all connected here by our shared sense of suffering, human suffering, mostly through addiction, the impact that has on us and those in our lives, as well as our shared commitment to recovery. And I was reminded of a word that Harriet had, or a teaching that Harriet had taught a long time ago. She referenced Pirkei Avot, wisdom of our sages. It says, the Mishnah of Ben Yoma said, who is rich? Who rejoices in his portion? Who is wise? One who learns from everyone. Who is mighty? One who masters their passions. Right? That's what we were just talking about. One who masters their passions. Not even restraint, but masters. Recognizes that we're full of passion. And we come here because we've lost our passions, many of us. And we stay here because we, fortunately, if we're lucky, we're able to reconnect to our passions. Who's deserving of honor? One who honors everyone. So Harriet says, that was a huge one. My clients didn't just dishonor others, they dishonored themselves. Many not only lost control, but they didn't care anymore. Over and over I'd hear, what difference does it make? Why bother? Fuck it. It's their fault, not mine. These are the mottos of addiction. It's their fault, not mine. Right? These are the mottos of addiction. So what I heard with Rav Shmuley and the lessons that we work on daily here is to master those inclinations, these mottos, and lean into the alternative. Lean into the alternative of the pain at times, of the sorrow, of the sadness, but also lean into the accountability, right, for ourselves and for others. And when those that portray injustice, there's an accountability factor that we can own, and that's how we find freedom, through accountability. And I would hope that the sense of accountability for our own our own healing and our own pain and our own choice to lean into our humanity right now can inform and provide a model for how we want to orient towards the world when the rest of the world seems to be out of control. All right, we're going to move from our heads, hopefully to our hearts a little bit. We're going to bring Cantor Nate and David up here. And there's a prayer that they're going to lead us in. We have some handouts that Sarah will help. Maybe some others might help. Let me get one. It's a prayer that might be familiar to some of you, and it echoes some of what Rav Shmuley had said, if we look at the words in English. It's a prayer of our brothers, the whole house of Israel, starts off, as our brothers, the whole house of Israel, who are given over to trouble or captivity, whether they abide on the sea or on dry land. May the all-present have mercy upon them and bring them forth from trouble to enlargement, from darkness into light. Right? It's what Rav Shmuley referenced in our Torah portion from last week, and in a theme and motto that we'll draw from in the successive portions over the next couple weeks. Move from darkness and disorder into light. From subjection to redemption, now speedily and at a near time. Right? This is a prayer for those that are in dire straits. But I hope it's also a prayer that we can connect to, because in our own lives, many of us are familiar with the suffering of being in dire straits, and we can draw upon that in a time where we can feel so powerless and so compromised and so vulnerable that all we can do is cry out and hopefully sing. So Cantor Nate will start, and I hope that we can join in. It's in Hebrew. The transliteration's on top, but the melody is universal. And so I welcome you to figure out a way to join in.
Achenu kol beit Yisrael, Achenu kol beit Yisrael, Antunim batzara uvishaivya, Ha'omnim ben bayam uven bayabasha. Achenu kol beit Yisrael, Achenu kol beit Yisrael, Antunim batzara uvishivya, Ha'omnim ben bayam uven bayam basha. Hamakom yarachem aleihem v'yotze metzara livacha umeafel aleora umeshiabu legeola hashta bagala uvizman kariv. Hamakom yerachem aleihem v'yotze metzara livacha umeafel aleora umeshiamu legula hashta bagala uvizman kariv. Achenu kol beit Yisrael, Achenu kol beit Yisrael, הנתונים בצרה ובשביה, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. אחינו כל בית ישראל, אחינו כל בית ישראל, הנתונים בצרה ובשביה, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. המקום ירחם, ירחם עליהם, ויוצא מצרה לרווחה, ומאפלה לאורה, ומשיגו לגאולה, השתה בגלה ובזמן קריב. המקום ירחם, ירחם עליהם, ויוצא מצרה לרווחה, ומאפלה לאורה, ומשיגו לגאולה, השתה בגלה ובזמן קריב.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dave.
David on guitar. All right, I'm going to call up an alumni and a member of our community, Micah, who has multi-generational connections to not just Israel, but to Jerusalem, and share a little bit about his relationship and where he's at over the last couple week or so.
Good evening, everyone. It is really amazing to be here with you all. And even though I am physically here and here in the West, I can say that my mind, my emotions, and really my broken heart have been in the East for the past 10 days. And over these days, I've really been trying to search for the words and trying to figure out how I can express what I'm feeling. I know that this isn't something that's special to me particularly, but really every single Jew is feeling this around the world. Israel to me is not just a place on a map. It's a special place. It is my home. And it is every Jew's home away from home. From the time of the ancient Israelites until now, it has been and always will be my home. But I personally have an even deeper connection to the state of Israel, which Chaplain Adam referenced. I am the proud grandson of an Israeli. A woman who grew up in Israel and was actually born in Jerusalem in 1907, prior to the blessing of the official founding of this modern state of Israel. For me, I grew up hearing about my family's personal connections, whether that be to a compound that's in East Jerusalem, which bore my family's name, Batei Wittenberg, or the Wittenberg houses, where former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, of blessed memory, had a home, where Mark Twain stayed and wrote letters about Israel. I remember going to Israel for my very first time when I was 7, and that was the same age that my daughter currently is, and looking at family photos from their time in military service and seeing all the various insignias of their different units, and myself, even at 7, feeling a sense of pride. I remember seeing artwork that my grandmother did, some of which is now still in the Jerusalem Museum, and feeling another sense of pride. I heard countless stories that span the entire country of Israel, whether that was Jerusalem, Haifa, Tel Aviv, or in the Negev, or the southern region of Israel. Israel is not just a Jewish homeland to me. It is my family's personal home, and it has been for over a century. Yet I realize that Jews all around the country have stories like this and deep-seated connections to Israel, which is why the attacks of this last week have shaken us so deeply to our core. It is why so many American Jews are not okay in this moment, and why we are scared and afraid, especially in a time where it seems anti-Semitism is on the rise and it harkens back to the Halloween rhetoric prior to the atrocity of the Holocaust. There is a sentiment in Israel that every single family knows someone, whether directly or somewhat more indirectly, who fell defending the state of Israel. And now I feel that is becoming more of a worldwide trend, that Jews in this country or other countries know someone who was personally impacted, who was lost or kidnapped during this week's last attack. My own Jewish summer camp, located in Carbondale, Illinois, a very southern part of Illinois, learned that one of their counselors from several years ago lost her life because she was in attendance at a music festival which Hamas attacked. The truth is, Hamas did not just attack Jews or Israelis. Hamas attacked humanity, and now the world is living in fear. And fear is a scary thing because we cannot control it in terms of what actually will cause us to be afraid. But for those of us who have gone through or are going through a 12-step program, we know that part of what we learn is that things are out of our control. We cannot control life, and we must live life and face life on life's own terms. So what can we do as individuals when we feel hopeless, when we feel lost or alone? We here and worldwide need to lean into their teachings and traditions preached in AA. We must strive to control what we can, how we respond to life. At times of chaos like this, we need to connect with God or our higher power. And we can do that through prayer. So we must pray. We must pray for peace. We must pray for the safety of those defending Israel and its citizens. And we must pray for all the innocent civilians that are stuck in the middle of this terrible war. But we also must be support to one another. We must be of service to each other and to the world in whatever way possible. For some, that will be to donate through humanitarian causes. I was very touched yesterday while watching Sunday football, seeing an option to donate on the screen for Israel. And I took that opportunity to do so. For others, like my family members or friends of mine who have served in the IDF, they will be going back to Israel or will be called up and protect our state. But for each of us, for those who are further away, we can be present for those who are in need. We can be that listening ear and a warm and loving heart. And we must hope. We must hope that there is a day when peace will arrive. We must hope that the storm will cease, and we must hope that peace will arrive quickly. I hope that we all witness the day that is spoken about in the book of Isaiah, where it states, "They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, and neither shall they learn war anymore." El Male Rachamim, God who is full of compassion, may that day be a reality in our lives, and may you grant us the strength to be agents of peace. and let us say,
All right. So, thank you, Micah, for sharing a little bit about the experiences that you, the connections and the foundations that you drew from family connections, from studying, from rabbinical school, from visits, and from relationships that speak to the love that you have of this land and of the dream, even as shattered as it might be for many of us right now. Sense of a dream shattered. So we're going to move, and I appreciate your words of wisdom on what the response is. Right? An authentic response from our tradition of prayer, of service, of presence. So they help us to retain our humanity, help us to master our inclinations, so that we have something to give and we're not just stuck in ourselves. Knowing that we have brothers and sisters in there, as well as neighbors, innocent neighbors who are in harm's way. And we need to find ways to be present and be of service, and in the least to pray for them. So with that in mind, we're going to transition a little bit to a little bit of prayer and a little bit more song and a little bit more gathering. But the thought is we're going to, for those that are able, I want you to join Cantor Nate, myself outside in the back on the patio. For those that can't, stay in your seats. It's fine. We want to encourage that we're able to pipe in the video here, so you'll be able to join the experience. But as we join outside on the patio, you'll notice that there's some posters up of faces, of very real humans. And you can see the range of humans. It's a small sample of I'm not even sure what the number is now, 150, 130, 200 of the Jews and others that were kidnapped. Vast majority were Jews. You can see from a 6-month-old to an 85-year-old to a whole family. Heartbreaking, devastating. And the pain that we feel is needed, because that's the fuel that can help us live into our humanity and be open to a possibility that there is light beyond the darkness. Because as I said from when we started, the world got a lot darker 10 days ago. And unfortunately, we have great fears of the possibilities of it getting even darker moving forward. And we're going to need the strength and the resolve that we draw from our own humanity and from each other in order to navigate what's ahead. So for those that are able, please, you can file out around the doors out back. Cantor Nate and Dave will lead, and we'll gather outside. Rabbi Heschel said that there's three authentic ways to respond to loss. He said there's tears, three levels actually. He said there's tears, and then the level of silence. Why don't we sit for a few minutes in the silence? Rabbi Heschel said that there's a third level, that after tears and silence, you move to song. And I don't know if everyone is there, or if we're all there, our community. We're still in shock in a lot of ways. But that's why we're gifted with a song leader and a cantor. Hold that for us. We're going to sing Ose Shalom, which really further reinforces the sense of familiarity and the sense of sanctity of our home here, knowing that in the verses, Ose Shalom, it talks about a God who brings peace in the heavens, pleading, praying for peace here. For a long time, we're blessed with a sense of peace here. We're a place that engenders a sense of peace, or strives to here. For the folks that live here and the folks that join here, for all you gathered here. And we pray that at some point, in the not too dear future, not too distant future, like there's the Israelis, innocent Palestinians are able to enjoy a sense of peace.
Ose Shalom Bimromav, Uyase Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Amen. Yase Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Yase Shalom, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
We'll also sing Hatikva, the national anthem, the state of Israel. For those that aren't familiar, it's on the sheet, if you still have it. It's a song of hope, of the hope of a dream that was established long before the nation was founded in 1948. And it's a nation that at times seems to be in great struggle internally and with its neighbors for way too long, yet still has a hope as the homeland of the Jewish people and a source of hope of bringing light into a lot of darkness in the world.
בלב הפנימה נפש יהודי הומייה פתי מזרח קדימה עין לציון סופיה עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו התקווה בת שנות 2000 היא אותם חופשי מארצנו ארץ ציון ירושלים היא אותם חופשי מארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים.
While we have hope for the beautiful faces of our brothers and sisters and cousins who are on our wall, we know that there's more than 1,200 who lost their lives. And so we have plenty more than 10 Jews gathered. Thought it would be appropriate to say an end, acknowledging the loss of their life, but affirming their humanity and their memories, and hoping to draw upon ours in order to keep moving forward.
Everyone, please rise. We'll all join together. We'll say Kaddish as a community. We all need healing in these times of uncertainty and pain and sorrow. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabbah ve'oma divrach rutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'gala u'bizman kariv v'imru Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olomei omaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, da'amiran ve'oma v'imru. Yehei shlam araba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru.
We'll close out there. welcome people to sit. This is a sacred space. Only 2 weeks ago, which seems like more than eternity, this was the spot where our sukkah, shelter of temporary gathering, stood. And so we are now on the other side of the holiday and other side of a tragedy. Again, with dark clouds looming, present. And so we hope that you can use this space and each other to help support where you're at, share, and draw upon the strength of this community. Thank you. Sorry, and one other thing. Because this is a community of gratitude, let me hold your attention for 2 more seconds, just with an expression of gratitude for Cantor Nate and for David, certainly for Rob Shmuley, for his words of wisdom and his guidance, for Sarah Jacobs and for Jesse Solomon, among others who really began the genesis of recognizing where our community was hurting and what they need and what we have to offer. Also, Sergio and board leadership, Keith Elkins, Janice, and the rest of the board who continue to support our operations and support our community so we can navigate this together. So, thank you. Be safe.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you for being here. For us. I mean, starting night was
Very strong.
very